Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Chris Owens.
Hello.
I'm working with the People's Voice Cafe and happy to be someone involved with our publicity and outreach. And I'd like to welcome you both, Judith Zweiman and Duane Bergman. Thanks for joining us today. And you're going to be part of our wonderful show coming up on October 14th of 2023. Woo-hoo. Yes, exactly. So. Yay. Let me start with a loaded question, and that is, how long have you two known each other?
1986.
To be specific, 1986. How did you meet?
Duane, you get to tell the story.
Yeah,
you're nicer than I am.
Okay. Well, actually, we met at Jack Hardy's Song Circle on West Houston Street, yes, and that was actually in November of 1985. But we won't, quibble about that.
You must be really good with those wedding anniversaries.
Well, yeah. He met me, but I don't remember that. We actually met at a recording session for songwriter Steve Key. So that was when we actually met, discovered that we knew each other for lifetimes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I remember, her and Mark leaving an impression on me at that time, like right off the bat. So, but then, yeah, it was April of 1986 that we actually worked together, and that was on a recording session for Steve Key, who was doing a demo for Kerrville.
Sure. Of course, I know none of these names, but that's okay.
That's all right.
The Kerrville Folk Festival.
Ah, okay.
Steve Key was he did quite a bit of stuff. He was also working with Fast Folk.
Okay.
Back at that time, and Judah and I discovered that we clicked. We worked together both musically and vocally, like very well, like right off the bat. There was no effort whatsoever.
That's a great feeling.
Our thought balloons were pretty similar, actually. Our thought balloons was like, oh no, I have to sing with somebody I don't know. This is going to suck. And we were both thinking that, and then we started singing and went, oh no, this doesn't suck. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love it. So Judith, let me focus in on you for a second. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where were you born? Where were you raised? How did you get involved with music? Did one of your parents chain you to a piano or a guitar? What was your evolution musically and life-wise?
Well, my mother said that I sang before I talked, which is probably the case. I'll probably continue to sing even after I can't talk anymore. Well, basically, I'm an alto version of my mother because we pretty much have the same voice. But somewhere along the line, when I hit almost adolescence, I started writing songs. And then I figured I better learn to play something.
So you could accompany yourself, right?
Yeah, because I could hear what the chords were, but I didn't have any way of communicating that. So I figured, well, I better learn either guitar or piano. And I knew damn well my father wasn't going to spring for a piano. So I got a guitar.
Where were you raised?
Plainview, Long Island.
Plainview, Long Island. Okay. And you went to Plainview, Long Island public schools, or?
I did.
Was there music in the schools?
Actually, in high school, I was actually able to be a quote unquote music major.
Wow.
They had a music theory program that was wonderful at Plainview High School. And at the same time, in my senior year, I discovered the guitar workshop of Roslyn, and so I'm also a guitar workshop brat. There are lots of people on the songwriter scene, like Robin Greenstein. I mean, we all went to the same school. We had the same teachers. And if you watch us play guitar, you'll see we all have correct classical position. So, because they wouldn't have had it any other way. But I have a background in pretty much every type of acoustic music that there is, because all of that was offered at the guitar workshop. There was trad, there was classical guitar. We were all expected to study classical. There was bluegrass, there was jazz, there was, you name it, it was all there.
That's fantastic.
I was also a classical guitar major at Nassau Community, and that and a Metro card will get me on the subway.
Except they didn't have Metro cards then. So let me ask you this. When you started writing songs, do you remember the very first song you wrote and what it was about?
Yes.
May I ask?
Yes. You may ask. I mean, I was like going on 13. So, what do you think they're about? They're about, love songs, nothing but love songs.
Well, Taylor Swift's made a fortune with it. So, and she started, at that age too. So I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, she did. But she grew up to actually do concerts in the frickin' rain, and I'm not that stupid. I'm not interested in electrocuting everyone around me.
I love it.
You're not going to get subtlety here. Duane is probably internally rolling his eyes at about now.
Well, okay. So love songs inspired you first, and
the Beatles, of course. The Beatles, of course. That whole '60s era, because we're old now. So there was the Beatles, there was Simon and Garfunkel. I learned to sing harmony from singing along with all that stuff, and then there was Joni Mitchell. And if we, hit the time machine and remember the fact that there were almost no female singer-songwriters in the industry at that time. There was Joni, she is the goddess. And, and she sang harmony with herself and layered it and layered it and layered it. I stopped singing through my nose at that point, because the only way to get up to head voice is to sing properly. So I can actually credit Joni Mitchell with getting me out of that whole nasal thing that you do if you don't know how to not do it.
Okay. Well, I'll have to have you teach me how to get away from that. How about you, Duane? Where were you raised? How did you get into music?
Okay. Well, music was a part of my life right from the beginning, because my dad was a jazz harmonica player, and my mom was a big band singer.
Wow.
So, and my mom was from North Carolina, my dad was from Brooklyn, and they wound up settling in the Catskills in Liberty, New York, in the 50s, and I was born there, and I just kind of soaked up music stuff like a sponge as I was growing up and whatnot. I was already singing along with records and whatnot by the time I was like 5 or 6. And, that was how I got my background and whatnot. And I probably started writing songs. I started playing the guitar when I was in my early teens. There was always a guitar around, because my dad played. And, I would pick it up and just noodle around on it. But then, I got a crush on a girl, and
I knew I was going to say the guitar became the chick magnet tool, right?
Right. And then I was like, well, if I could play something on this, maybe somebody would notice me, So I, at that point, I basically learned how to play from chord charts in music books. I learned how to play chords and whatnot. There are some chords I play totally differently than anybody else in the world plays, because nobody taught me how to finger them. So, But
well, that's how Ringo learned how to play drums. So
yeah, well, it works out good sometimes.
that's right, exactly.
So yeah, and my influences, well, as I was growing up, I mean, of course, the Beatles, but my like direct emotional influence was more like after the Beatles broke up. So more like Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and George Harrison, and even Ringo separately. Although I had an intellectual appreciation of the Beatles because they were amazing together. Yeah, exactly. But there was also Joni Mitchell, obviously, and Laura Nyro was another one who was like an amazing, and she was one of the early female singer-songwriters who she didn't really have too many commercial hits on her own, but she contributed to so many artists like Carole King did, like the Fifth Dimension and Three Dog Night and all these other people. But my main influence is probably the country rockers of the 70s, like the Eagles and Dan Fogelberg and Jackson Brown, and all of those guys.
So let me ask you then, from the standpoint of lyrics and content, how did you find the content of your songs? I'll ask you first, Judith, the content of your songs evolving lyrically. When did you start incorporating social justice content, if you did, into your music? What inspired you or what triggered you to do those things?
That's an interesting question. I'm not a person that writes stories, like Harry Chapin is a songwriter that wrote story songs. I wasn't one of those. I tended to write from what was actually going on, which is always problematic. It gets people into trouble. But I think that I have a really deep appreciation for the social justice songwriters. Of course, Pete Seeger and Phil Ochs and Tom Paxton and all of those great singer-songwriters of the more deeply folk era. But I can't honestly say, well, I covered those songs. I can't honestly say that I wrote those songs.
Those kind of songs, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, when you've got the great songs by Pete Seeger or Paxton or Phil Ochs or Joan Baez covered everybody. When you have that, it's kind of like, all right, the rest of you just pack up and go home.
Well, I totally empathize, because it's sort of, where do you find the space? Where's the niche that you can occupy? I mean, speaking as a songwriter myself, I too am not what I call a story songwriter. I struggle with that greatly. When I listen to people like Charlie King and Pete and others, it seems like they're effortlessly telling these incredible stories so beautifully, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, I wish I could do that. And it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that if it's not me, it's okay. I have another type of song that I do, and I do that, and they don't do that. And so one has to get comfortable with that role, right? And so
right, absolutely. I mean, because my musical influences were kind of all over the place. People would think of me as a folkie, except that I was also singing jazz and I was also singing trad, which is not the same thing as what most contemporary singer-songwriters think folk music started with, like James Taylor. But I was into things like sea shanties, and then when I hit college age, started connecting with the, at the time, kind of quietly closeted pagan community. And so that became a big influence. The problem was, in those days, you were told to not talk about it because, you know, they used to like burn us types. So, you know, it was kind of like you just sort of kept it quiet.
So I'm sorry, let me just ask you this. You know, out of all of this, what was the most controversial song that you feel you wrote? And could you quote us a couple of the lyrics from that song?
I don't know, Duane. What's the most controversial song? Duane's the other half of my brain. What's the most controversial song? Louisa?
Yeah.
You think?
I think.
I don't know if it was controversial. It certainly was different.
Well, one that would hit a listener in a different, and make them go, whoa.
I think that song would hit a listener in a different kind of way than you know, than most songs would.
Yeah. Well, also that was the first song that Jack Hardy was forced to invite me to sing on Folk.
Mm-hmm.
The actual quote was, "That song, Louisa, I think we should record it." So that's my Jack Hardy.
So are you? So we're gonna hear. Are we going to hear Louisa as part of the program on the set of the show?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Because we're going to be we're entering the you know, the fall season, and October 14th is just
right before Halloween.
A couple of weeks from Samhain, so we're in the season.
Okay, gotcha.
We're definitely in the season, and I have a bunch of things. It's very strange. You know, now of course, in the era of all of the television shows that came out in the 90s, and then everybody who watched all of those shows like Charmed and all of those witchy shows that were on TV, and they kind of discovered the goddess, and there was the book When God Was a Woman, and there was Starhawk had all these books, and suddenly everybody was pagan. You know, if you get an outfit, you can be a cowboy too.
So Duane, let me switch to you in terms of the integration of social justice into your work and your music. How did that happen?
Well, actually, I'm mostly the Paul McCartney of the group.
He's my favorite Beatle. So
I tend to write mostly silly love songs, but yeah, there have been a few that I've written a couple of story songs along the way.
Can I volunteer the one of yours that I think is the most?
Yeah, sure.
And that's The Day the Rock Died.
Oh, okay.
The Rock died. Are we talking Dwayne Johnson, The Rock? Or are we talking about?
No. We're talking about rock. The rock music station WNEW-FM.
Oh, I remember that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to document something because WNEW was a huge influence for me because
me too.
Living in the Catskills, you couldn't just pick up an FM radio station.
Right.
We had, but luckily we had a guy who put an antenna up on top of a hill in order to get TV reception into our town because he wanted to sell TVs. So he made a deal with the electric company. He was able to run lines down into everybody's houses, and he basically offered the service for free at the time.
Wow.
And he basically invented the cable industry. And now he's a billionaire.
You never told me this story. That's a great story.
I never told you that. Yeah, it's a guy in town, Alan Gary, and he did one other thing with his billions that has been like a really amazing thing. He he funded and built Bethel Woods.
Oh,
so the Bethel Woods Museum and concert venue and everything is Alan Gary's brainchild.
Wow.
So that's what he did. So bravo to him.
Yeah.
And all
well
that
done to him.
But anyway, getting back to the WNEW thing, I felt that era needed to be documented. And then I wrote that's a story song, more or less, but it has me in it, but it's a story song.
Sure,
it's told from the first person. But I would say that's probably one of my more socially conscious kind of songs. I did write a song about the financial collapse of 2008, which is called "The Last One to Leave Wall Street."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which
great song.
Yeah, and we'll probably hear that one also.
Good, great. So since you two duet, I'm assuming you play together, you sing harmonies together, your two guitars playing together. What sort of energies do you feed off of each other as you're doing these different types of songs? You, Duane, sounds like you're more on the softer side, and Judith sounds like you're a little bit more on the edgy side. How does that work in terms of the chemistry between you?
Works well. It's kind of a good trade-off, so
wait, does that mean you get a break from yourself when you're playing with her and she gets a break from herself when she's playing with you? Or does it mean that you just are able to build something together that's different from what each of you does separately?
It's sort of a synastry,
symmetry, or a synergy.
It's so I don't know. I mean, literally from when we first sang together, it just came together like that. And
what was that first song that you sang together?
It was one of Steve's. I don't remember what we recorded first.
There was a song that we did for him. What was it called? It was called Desperado Sister.
Yeah, but there was another one. We did a couple.
Oh, Between Trains was the other one.
Yeah, we love trains. That's the other thing. Duane and I both love trains.
Okay, you could do worse.
And I've got a train song also, which
we both got train songs. I don't know if trains are social justice, but actually, kind of O&W kind of is in a way.
Right. It all depends on
the end of the O&W railroad.
Yeah, well, it's a story song.
Yeah,
very cool.
It's a history lesson.
So when you guys were performing, were you mostly doing, college gigs, folk festival gigs, folk club gigs, all of the above? What was it like to be, a pair of folks who were out there performing your music regularly?
Well, we were actually a trio of folks.
Oh, sorry.
And sometimes we were, a 4-piece, but mostly we were a trio. And
the core was a trio, yeah.
Yeah. And we had a steady gig for years at a club on Broadway in 106th called Augie's. And it was pretty unusual to have a steady gig during that period of time. And so we were there every weekend. We played, one point we were doing Saturday from like midnight to 4, which really meant midnight to 5.
Oh, wow.
And then we started doing Sundays from 10:30 to 2:30, which really kind of meant 10:30 to 3:30. And so that was our steady thing. And then we did all sorts of stuff. We played, I've been doing nursing homes since I was in high school, but we worked through an organization which sadly doesn't exist anymore, called HAI, Hospital Audiences. So we did those kinds of things. We played, the bars, the restaurants,
the village clubs.
Yeah, gazebos.
Yeah. But we played at the Speakeasy, and
all the usual 80s stuff.
And Paper Moon or Sun Mountain. We and quite a few other places down there.
And also in Westchester, we played some places. Duane remembers more of them than I do.
But did you guys travel outside the Northeast?
No.
Not too much. Yeah. Okay. No, we only played in the New York metro area.
What about recordings?
Oh, we recorded a lot.
And what was that circulation like?
We, like everybody else, we sold them on the gigs. It was a different world. The 80s and 90s were a different world. There was no internet. There was no, anything. But what we do have that nobody else was doing at the time is we were documenting everything we did on video.
Oh.
Ha.
Yeah, we have some of that.
You have the ultimate documentary.
We do. And
folkumentary.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a folkumentary. But we have a shit ton of video. And now we want to start getting it all transferred to digital so we can throw it on YouTube and, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, of course, we should mention that, Judith has a lot of recordings that are in the Fast Folk Musical magazine, and all of those are in the Smithsonian Folkways.
Yeah, the Smithsonian Folkways. Yeah,
oh, that's great.
So it's so weird. I'm so disconnected from that period of time in a lot of ways. I mean, now that Duane has come back into musical circulation, now that he's done with day jobbing, we can go back to making trouble, which I'm really looking forward to.
Well, wait, each of you have worked day jobs, right? So Duane, what were you doing?
I'm actually an audio visual engineer.
Oh, how convenient.
And I've worked, I worked for years. I'm a recording engineer also. As a matter of fact, when we met, it was on a recording session, which I was doing the actual recording, but I also performed.
Right.
So
and I've been a music specialist in nursing homes for like eons. So both of us have been doing music. Just, people would say, are you still playing? Is there any way I can come and see you? And I said, well, you better be in a wheelchair. Because that's where I'm playing, it's like, I work all the time, I actually have less work now since I had some injuries a few years ago, but I was working 6-7 days a week doing facilities.
Okay. Let me ask you. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, you go finish your sentence.
No, I was going to say that the vast majority of the audiences that I had dementia, so they don't even remember that I was there.
So let me ask you a question, about the contemporary music environment. I mean, here we are at a time when, yes, it's the internet. Yes, things are digital. Yet one might say that the quality of a lot of the music that we hear today has not evolved as much as the technology has evolved. How's that for a diplomatic statement? And what I'm curious to know, and I will freely admit, Judith, I'm not familiar with your music, and
that's all right. I'm not either, so it's okay.
Even though I've been connected to People's Music Network for Songs of Freedom and Struggle since '84 in one form or another, there's so many great artists that I was exposed to that I just don't know a lot of their material. But I'm wondering if you put together a, greatest hits of Judith Zweiman from, all these recordings that you did that are now, archived as well. But if you put together a separate piece and we're able to circulate it now using modern technology to college radio stations and all these places that are going retro and playing folk and trying to reconnect to the spirits of what was going on in the 60s and 70s. Do you think that your songs would have some resonance with newer audiences that weren't born yet when you were recording them?
Well, it's funny you should say that.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's funny
Oh,
you should say that,
convenient.
because actually what's kind of gotten me reconnected to thinking about doing my own music again is I have some really truly fabulous millennial friends who are out there in the world doing what they do. One of them is my friend Rory Kelly, who you guys should definitely have at People's Voice.
Okay.
And there's a guy out in California named Diggy Cat, who is a radio guy. He's also a producer. He, produces people's recordings. He's a recording engineer, and he's actually been the one that kind of got on our case to get back out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See
so
that?
suddenly, yeah, it's very strange, but all this stuff that I had like half forgotten about because was so much in the past. I mean, and I tend to be more focused on what's the next holiday that's coming up, what program do I need to do next in terms of music programming, for the facilities, because I'm always focused there. To suddenly like back up and go, oh yeah, I've got these songs, and Duane knows what they are.
There's a few other people who do too. So
yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
When you work with people in a medical situation, you don't exactly walk in expecting that your next gig is going to be at Madison Square Garden. It's kind of like I've got my cart and I'm wheeling around from unit to unit and playing in the day rooms and waiting for the bingo to finish and, all that kind of stuff. And I get really attached to my residents. And they get attached to me, and it's kind of a love fest, I have to say. And you get really spoiled because it's like such a warm, loving situation, even when somebody's in the back of the room screaming, while I'm singing. It's like they have a disease. They can't help that behavior, and I don't get upset by it. My mom
I've played with her, and yeah, some of those audiences are the most appreciative audiences you can imagine.
They are. They're like,
yes.
It's like you walk in the door and they yell,
just pure joy.
They're so happy.
Just pure joy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a choice between that and playing in some crappy bar.
Sure. Oh, I certainly understand that. I guess what I'm curious to know though is, again, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't have any songs that are currently circulating on the streaming services for people to hear. Is that a fair statement?
Well,
yes, we do.
We have stuff on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Well, on YouTube. What about the Spotify, the Apple, the Amazon? Those.
Yeah.
Those
well, I have those.
He's on Pandora and
Spotify and Apple Music and all of those.
But Judith doesn't.
I hate Spotify because they rip.
I hate them too, but I'm
I hate them too.
Stuck on it.
Can't get off now. Once you're on, you can't get off.
But Smithsonian Fast Folk stuck all our stuff up on all of the places.
Oh, it did.
All the streaming services, yes.
Yeah, I discovered one day that
to your shock and amazement.
Yeah, that I had this music career that was persisting despite my best attempts to ignore it.
Yep.
I first started going to NERFA, and have you ever been to NERFA, Chris?
I'm familiar with it, but I haven't been.
Well,
I'm not a guitar player. I'm a keyboard player, and I tend not to. No, I'm just explaining my warped perspective. My warped perspective is that if I can go someplace where I can just listen to music and just enjoy it, that's fine. But a lot of the places where folks gather, other than People's Music Network weekends, I'm not drawn to, not because the experience wouldn't be good, but I kind of feel a little left out, because I'm not a guitar.
I can understand that. Yeah. Well, there I am in the elevator, and we've all got our big, stupid badges. Badges. We don't need those thinking
badges, right?
But we've got those ID things, and people are looking at everybody's badges. And the first time I went to NERFA, and suddenly there were people going, "Oh, you're Judith Zweiman."
Ah.
And I'm kind of like, yeah.
No other Judith standing next to me.
Yeah, so I tend to kind of, I'm always shocked. I'm less shocked if I'm walking around the Upper West Side and some total stranger comes up to me and goes, my mother really, really appreciated when you would come to sing for her. That's fine.
Right. I understand.
Yeah, I don't know who they are. I pretend to know who they are because, people do that all the time. Plus the CNAs and nursing staff and stuff, they move from one facility to the next, and they remember me, and I have no clue who they are. And they're like, "You remember me?" I'm like, "Sure I do."
And so when you talk about, walking around the Upper West Side, someone comes up to you, that's exactly, it's a community thing. People feel like, oh yeah, you're part of the community, which is really cool.
I actually want to brag on Duane for a second here because, since both of us are so egocentric. Duane's folks, fabulously talented, both of them. Well, one night his dad was, he sat in at our gig at Augie's.
Oh, cool.
His dad played the full chromatic harmonica.
The jazz harmonica, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And what was it he did, like Rhapsody in Blue or something?
Yeah, well, we let him do a little solo thing, and he basically he has this like about 6-minute version of Rhapsody in Blue that he plays like solo on the harmonica.
Right.
And you could hear a pin drop in the place.
That must have been awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, It was amazing. It was amazing. It's
yeah.
And he was in a movie with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. He was in a couple of movies. But that was back in the 1930s. It was before World War II.
Yet.
Yeah, long before. But just to give a little background on Judith, I mean, she played several of the fast folk shows at the Bottom Line. On one of the shows, Sean Colvin and Lucy Kaplansky did one of her songs called Hard on Ice.
I wasn't in that. Yeah.
If you weren't in that show, but you were in the audience.
We were in the audience, and we had to leave to go uptown to go play Augie's.
Yeah, to go do a gig. Yeah.
Yeah, when we were still doing the midnight.
Did you know they were going to do the song?
Yeah. Apparently, for whatever it's worth, like I said, that and the Metro card will get me on the train. But it was the only song that was ever done in the Fast Folk Show where it literally was a showstopper, and people did standing ovations and things, and not just in the New York show. Like they went to Boston, they went to other places.
Oh wow! And which song was that?
Hard on Ice.
And we're going to hear that at People's Voice,
I suppose.
Yeah. Yes, we will.
That's up to Duane.
Yes, we will. Yeah, and it also got written up in the New York Times.
Well, that's always fun.
Yeah.
So guys, we're coming towards the end of our time, and what I wanted to ask was, first of all, is there anything that I've overlooked that you'd like to share with our audience today about yourselves or about your music or about your plans for the future? That would be great to know. And the second thing I would say is, just from your standpoint as songwriters, are you writing today? And if you're writing today, what are you writing about?
Well, I can say I am writing today. And I've also, I took about a 20-year break to make money. So,
to be a grown up.
in the, and raise a family. So
Same here.
I'm just kind of getting back into things now, but, I had a lot of, I had some, songs that I always had kicking around in the back that I put to the forefront. I have, close to an album's worth of new material that I'm working on, which, I haven't decided how to release it yet. Nowadays, it's kind of, physical medium has kind of fallen by the wayside. So, but I have a lot of things that I'm working on, and some of which definitely have some, social relevance. But I'm actually thinking that I'm doing some things now that are some of the best stuff I've ever done. So,
yay!
That's very cool. And if you need any background vocals on the male side, feel free to give me a call. I love singing
cool.
harmony. Love
All right.
singing harmony. What about you, Judith?
Excellent.
I'm writing parodies a lot.
Cool.
Unfortunately, everything seems to spark this stuff, much to everyone's chagrin. I write a lot of parodies, not necessarily things that I would necessarily perform.
Meaning you'd let somebody else perform them, or you
well,
just
I
do
don't
them for
know.
yourself?
We'll see if we can find one that's like,
Rated
like,
PG.
It's appropriate enough to do. Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
I'm just a widow troublemaker.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm gonna try to explain this. I also have a background in astrology, but I also have a bit of a background in tarot. And my tarot birth cards are Lovers and Devil. And people who have the Devil card as part of their birth card pair are snarky and kind of like to torment the world. Because
You're mischievous. Huh?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that I do. And I tend to write on Facebook a lot. So lots of these things will happen spontaneously. At one point when I was talking with Steve, talked about the idea of maybe at some point having a parody night, because there's other folks in the People's Voice community like Joel Landy, who Duane went to college with. Duane went to college
with. Oh,
with
really?
Joel.
With Joel?
That's how I know Joel.
Oh, we were in the theater group together.
Oh, wow.
In college. Yeah. I can tell
so
you stories.
It would be fun. It would be really fun to do like a parody night.
I agree. That's a great idea.
Love Joel. He's great.
We have theme nights now, and so that would be
I'm
a
all
great
about
theme.
themes.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
All about themes. I guess the more social justice-y things that I write tend to come out as poems. And
there you go.
I have stuff that I have a longer piece that I wrote in the last month or two that I'm sort of not releasing yet because it's probably going to get my ass kicked. So
I can't wait to hear it.
Well, no, I'm not even going to go into it. You know that it's like problematic if I don't even want to talk about it.
All I know is that it will be interesting. I don't know if it's problematic.
Yeah, it will be interesting.
I won't judge.
I'll get my ass kicked. I'll get my ass kicked. Like I know I'll get my ass kicked.
Oh boy.
I have to run it past. I have to run it past my social justice-y millennial friends and see how bad I'm.
Exactly. Right. There's your jury.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's sort of like if they're not going to like hunt me down and
it's okay.
Toss me to the wild wolves. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm always writing. The question is whether I'm writing things of commercial value.
We don't care about commercial value.
Yeah,
It's true.
Look, at this point in our lives, the bottom line is if there's some money that comes as a result, that's nice, but that
exactly, just icing
isn't
on the
our
cake.
Motivation.
Yep.
I kind of feel like I just want to throw all this stuff up on the web and say, you like it because of the hate, help yourself.
Well, that's what websites are for. So we can talk about that another time. Anyway,
all right.
We have to go. We have to go. So it was a pleasure talking to both of you. I'm really excited about hearing this show. I'm sorry that you're only doing one set because it sounds like you could do 4 and we'd still be.
We actually could, yeah.
We'd be riveted. So thank you for your time.
Wonderful.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I will be there. We'll get to meet in person.
Cool.
Although we'll all be wearing a mask, but we'll be there in person.
Sounds good.
Thanks again. Have a wonderful few weeks.
Actually, Chris, I sent you the album that Duane and I did that came out, I guess, in the early 90s or something. The Judith Zweiman and the Answers.
The 20 years ago album?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Judith Zweiman and the Answers. I like that.
We re-released it in 2006. That's when we released it on today.
Yeah, that's when we released it on CD.
On CD. Right.
Now you got to re-release it on. Now you have to re-release it again.
I still hear from people who say they're still listening to the cassette version of that was around in the mid 90s. So, and 80s actually.
My only release was on cassette in 1984. That was it. So I gotta
cassettes are making a comeback.
I hear, except that I don't have any of mine left.
Or if you can find a cassette player,
right? You have to find the cassette player. All right, guys, have a wonderful night. Thank you again.
You too. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.